Hello, welcome to Bits in Biology. My name's Liz, and in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the games I played in January 2025. In January, I had 54 total plays from 27 different games. 10 of those games were new to me, and in descending order of how much I enjoyed them, they were Finspan, Nucleum, Scholars of the South Tigris, Life of the Amazonia, Azul, Stained Glass of Sintra, River Valley Glassworks, Death Valley, Flip 7, Super Slopes, and Dragon Castle. 6 of the 27 games were relevant to the channel, and 3 of those were new to me. That was Finspan, Life of the Amazonia, and Death Valley. If you want to see all of the games I played in January, you can visit my profile on Board Game Geek. There is a link in the description to that. I record all of my plays, so that's all public information. Let's compare that to December, when I had 59 plays of 42 different games, so quite a bit more in December. Of those 42, 10 were new to me, and 10 were relevant to the channel. Those weren't the same 10. All right, before we move on, I just want to remind folks that we do have a Discord. The link for that is in the description. And I want to thank everybody who joined recently. We had, I say quite a few compared to, we're a small group, but we're all very friendly. If you haven't yet already, please make sure to introduce yourself in the Introduce Yourself section of the Discord. All right, let's get to the top 10 games I played in January. As always, you can use timestamps to skip around. 4 of the top 10 from January were new to me, and 3 of these top 10 are channel relevant games with a nature, animal, or science theme. Before we get to the top 10, I just want to say I had the hardest time ranking these games this month. Every single one of these games is ranked 9.1 or above by me, entirely subjective, of course. And you'll notice that, for instance, if I look at 10, 9, and 8, they're actually all 3 ranked 9.1. So I did try to put them in an order, but they all are rated the same. Anyway, I'm going to go through the first few of them a little bit quickly, just because I've covered them before. So if you want to see slightly more in-depth reviews, you can go back to previous vlogs. I do always put timestamps in the description so you can find those. At number 10, we have Carcassonne. We played this one time. We've played it 28 times total. This is a favorite of my mom, so it does make it to the table pretty regularly. This is a tile placement area majority game. It plays 2 to 5 players in 30 to 45 minutes, has an average Board Game Geek weight of 1.89, an average rating of 7.4, and my rating of it is a 9.1. So what you're doing in this game is, on your turn, you draw a tile and you just add it to the growing landscape in the middle of the table. Everybody is contributing their tiles to the same landscape. And you have a limited number of meeples. I think it's 7 maybe. And when you place that tile, it might have a bit of road, it might have a bit of city, it might have a bit of both. You can use one of your limited meeples to claim that road or that city. And once those are completed, then you'll get points for that. You can actually hone in on people's cities or roads. And this is actually a favorite of our son. He loves to do this. I've talked about it before. And that's one of the things we really like about it. It's just so satisfying to build up these cities and roads and to manage your limited number of meeples, because you don't get them back until that road or city is completed. And then there's also monasteries that have to be completely surrounded. Anyway, that was number 10, Carcassonne. At number 9 is Azul. We played this twice in January. We've played it 15 times total. This is a tile placement open drafting set collection game. Plays 2 to 4 players in 30 to 45 minutes. Has an average Board Game Geek weight of 1.77, an average rating of 7.7, and my rating of it is a 9.1. This is actually one of my favorite games. I am not very good at it, but I do really enjoy it. And so in Azul, you are drafting tiles from a central market, and on your turn, you take tiles of the same type, right? The same color, same pattern, and you place those on your board. And then at the end of the round, when everybody has taken all of the tiles, then you are going to move for full rows, you're going to move a tile over to your wall. And as you are placing those, you're going to score based on how many other tiles are adjacent, basically. I'm not explaining this very well. And then at the end of the game, you're going to score according to columns and if you've collected complete sets and so on. Anyway, just another really satisfying, I like these puzzly tile placement games. And that was number 9, Azul. At number 8, one of my partner's absolute favorite games, and that is Clank Catacombs. We started with the original Clank, which I'm also going to talk about because his birthday was in January. So we played Clank, I think, 3 nights in a row. So at number 8, we had Clank Catacombs. We played this once in January. We played it with the expansion, the recent Layers and Lost Chambers expansion that was just released. We have played it 8 times total. I think I got this for his birthday last year. It is a deck building, push your luck, open drafting game. It plays 2 to 4 players in 45 to 90 minutes. It has an average Board Game Geek weight of 2.51, an average rating of 8.3, and my rating of it is a 9.1. I'm going to talk about original Clank here in a minute. In Clank Catacombs, what makes it different is you are laying these tiles to build the dungeon. And so it's more like an adventure because you really don't know where your ultimate destination is. Your goal is to get in, get an artifact, and get back out while collecting as many points as possible. And you do that by collecting secrets and freeing prisoners, and I think there's a couple of other ways to do it. And like I said, we played with the Layers and Lost Chambers expansion, which just adds a few more tiles and a few more ways to get points. And you do have to make it out and above ground to count. Well, you have to make it above ground to count your points, and then you have to make it out of the catacombs in order to get the 20-point bonus. And I think actually in this one, I think our son didn't make it out this time. He's usually quite good at getting it in and out really quick. Anyway, it's just a really fun push your luck deck building game, 2 mechanisms that we really love. And again, that's one of my partner's favorite games. And that was number 8, Clank Catacombs. At number 7, we have the original Clank, called Clank, a Deck Building Adventure. We played this 2 times in January, and that is because we played with one of the expansions, so I'll talk about that in just a minute. We have played it 28 times total. This is a deck building, open drafting, push your luck game. Plays 2 to 4 players in 30 to 60 minutes, has an average Board Game Geek weight of 2.23, an average rating of 7.8, and my rating of it is a 9.2. Again, this is my partner's favorite game, and it probably bounces between this and Clank Catacombs. I think he likes Clank Catacombs a little bit better. So what you're doing is very similar to Clank Catacombs, except you have a fixed board. Only this time we played with the Ape Lords expansion, and what's more, we played the 2-game campaign that is associated with that expansion. So the board that comes with that expansion has 2 sides. It has a jungle side and a temple side. And so the first game that you play on the jungle side. So we played that on one night. And there are some tokens that will carry over to the next game, which is played on the temple side. But the premise is basically still the same. You are going down either in the jungle or the temple, you're picking up an artifact and you're getting back out. Only in this case, instead of angering a dragon, you are angering an ape lord. So a few different types of treasures, different types of cards. The cards are really funny to read if you read the bottoms of them, which is always kind of fun. But anyway, just a really fun push your luck deck building game. Coming in at number 6 is a game that was new to us, and that is Nucleum. We played it twice in January. We have played it 4 times total. So we played it at the end of January and then again in February. This is a network building and hand management game. Although you are not managing hands of cards, you are managing tiles. This plays 1 to 4 players in 60 to 150 minutes. It has an average Board Game Geek weight of 4.16, an average rating of 8.2, and my rating of it is a 9.3. And so the premise of this game is it is an alternative reality, alternative history during the Industrial Revolution, where this woman has discovered that you can use uranium to heat up water, to create steam, to create electricity. The idea is you are building up a network, kind of similar to Brass Birmingham, which I talked about I think last month, and I'm going to talk about again. So you are building up a network. You are also laying buildings out on the board and then powering those buildings with either uranium or coal. There's different ways you can do it. You're using coal sort of more in the beginning of the game and uranium more towards the end of the game. And let's see. So I talked about building the networks and putting the buildings on the board. You're also building mines and adding turbines to reactors, these nucleums is what they're calling the nuclear reactors. And the really fun part about this game is that the tiles, which are sort of the central component of this game, are two-sided. On one side, they'll have a couple of actions that you can take, and on the other side, they are railroad tracks. And so on your turn, you're going to play one of these, and you're either going to play it above your board or you're going to play it onto the board. Either way, you get to take the actions on the tile. Now, if you play it on the board, you might not be able to take both of those actions depending on color matching that you've done when you placed that. The tricky part is if you're playing the tiles above your board, you will get those back. And if you play them onto the board to create your railway lines, you do not get those back, right? Because they get flipped over in their railways. But if you don't put them on the board, then you're not developing your network, and that's going to make it very difficult to power your buildings. And so there's some really interesting choices to make. I really like that mechanism with the dual use of the tiles. You're also moving up tracks for workers and income and victory points. And so I really enjoyed this. Our first game did not go great. The rulebook is not the best, which I've heard from somebody else. I think this is our first board and dice game. I've heard from somebody else that maybe they're not always known the best for their rulebooks, and it may be a translation problem. So perhaps if they're in the original language, there's no issue. I don't know. But anyway, our first game took over 3 hours, which was a little long. Our second game went a little bit better. I think it came in at just about 2 hours. And then we played again the next weekend, and we did much better. It was much more fun. We knew what we were doing by that point, and we felt like we could actually make the decisions and focus on the decisions instead of focusing on trying to remember the rules anyway. But we'll definitely keep this one in the collection. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing it solo. I haven't played it solo yet. That was number 6, Nucleum. At number 5, we have a channel relevant game. This is Life of the Amazonia, which was new to us in January. So I'll talk about that when I talk about the channel relevant games. And then also channel relevant at number 4 was Finspan. So again, I'll talk about that when I talk about the channel relevant games. At number 3, we have a game I did talk about last month, and that is Brass Birmingham. Oh boy, we loved this game. We played it 2 times in January. So we played this the first 2 times we played it were in December, and then we played it again 2 times in January. So I'm not going to talk about it a whole bunch because I did talk about it just last month. This is an economic strategy game with hand management, multi-use cards, which I love, and route building or network building. It plays 2 to 4 players in 60 to 120 minutes. It has an average Board Game Geek weight of 3.87, an average rating of 8.6, and my rating of it is a 9.5. And I have in parentheses a plus here because that could go up, actually. This is a really good game. After our first play of it, I think I talked more about this last month, so if you want to get more detailed thoughts, I have timestamps in every video, and you can go to the December video and see what my thoughts were. But after my first play, I was a little skeptical about why was it number 1 on Board Game Geek, but it is. And after my second play, and especially after the third and fourth plays, I now understand. Very elegant game. The decisions are very interesting. You are building networks, growing industries, and basically navigating your way through the Industrial Revolution, first through a canal era, then through a railroad era. So you're building these networks, placing buildings, earning income from those buildings. And again, these dual use cards are sort of the central mechanism, kind of similar to the dual use tiles in Nucleum, but these ones, you can use them to either lay out your network, canals or railways, or to play buildings out onto the board. So again, if you want to see my detailed thoughts, or see here, if you want to hear my detailed thoughts on this, I'm going to encourage you to go back to the December vlog because I did just talk about this last month. So I'm not going to go more in depth about this one, but that was number 3, Brass Birmingham. At number 2 is another game that was new to us in January, and that is Scholars of the South Tigris. Oh boy, I was really looking forward to this game, and it did not disappoint. We played this 3 times in January. We have played it 3 times total. We haven't gotten back to it yet. This is a worker placement game with dice workers and tech tracks. It plays 1 to 4 players in 60 to 90 minutes and has an average Board Game Geek weight of 4.07, an average rating of 8, and my rating of it is a 9.5. And this one could go up too. I forgot to mention I have not yet played Brass Birmingham solo. I will at some point. Scholars of the South Tigris I will definitely play solo at some point. This was so much fun. So in Scholars of the South Tigris, players are taking on the role of scholars working to translate important academic manuscripts into Arabic during the Abbasid Caliphate. This is around 830 CE. They must recruit translators, manage their influence with different language guilds, and optimize their dice to gain knowledge, earn prestige, and contribute to the House of Wisdom. So what are you doing? On your turn, you choose an action card to play, and then you choose dice and optionally workers to manipulate those dice, and you're playing those on the action card. The value and the color of the dice on the card is going to determine how you perform the action that you choose. And you have your choice of, if I remember correctly, 4 different actions. You can hire or dispatch translators. You can travel around this, they call it a map, but it's just a circular track to gain resources, or possibly to move a scroll of one of those manuscripts over to one of the Houses of Wisdom. You can also research on any one of the academic tracks. There are tracks for math, physics, chemistry, philosophy, biology, and astronomy. And then finally, you can also translate a scroll. That's kind of what you're working up towards with all of those other actions. This just has super interesting strategic decisions. I love the theme of translating these academic manuscripts so you're traveling the world to collect them. That's sort of the premise. And then bringing them back to your home region. Can't remember what country this is happening in. But anyway, there's competition. So there's definitely a little bit of player interaction in that you are competing for manuscripts, you're competing for translators, you're competing for guild influence, and you're trying to use your own translators, but you might end up using somebody else's translators, which will give them money. Money is hard to come by in this game. It's just really fun, and it's beautiful. The board is beautiful, very colorful. The typical artwork for these Garphill games. I haven't played any of the other South Tigris games. I really would. They actually, all 3 of them sound interesting to me. There's Wayfarers of the South Tigris, Inventors of the South Tigris, and Scholars of the South Tigris. I can't remember what order they came out in, but they all look interesting. Scholars of the South Tigris was phenomenal. So that was number 2, Scholars of the South Tigris. At number 1 is a game I have talked about before. It is also channel relevant, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. I will talk about when I talk about the channel relevant games, and that is Weather Machine. I only have one honorable mention this month, believe it or not, and this is a game I wanted to mention because it is a game with a really unique mechanism that we all enjoyed. My mom even enjoyed it. And this game is River Valley Glassworks. We played this 3 times in January. We have played it actually 5 times total now. We played it twice last night, actually. The first game went very quickly, and we were all like, that's it, let's play again. Anyway, this is a pattern building and open drafting game for 1 to 5 players, plays in 25 to 45 minutes, has an average Board Game Geek weight of 1.47, an average rating of 7.2, and my rating of it is an 8.5. In River Valley Glassworks, each player has a sort of reserve of stones that can be replenished during the game. And those stones come in, I think it's 5 different shapes, might only be 4, I can't remember, or it might be more than that. I'll put a number up on the screen. Anyway, there's a bunch of different shapes, and the tokens are really satisfying to play with. And they're all, each shape is the same. Obviously, they were made from a mold, but they're just imperfect enough that they resemble a little bit river stones. And so you're using that shape to you place it on the matching tile in the river, and then you'll take from a tile adjacent to that tile, you'll take all the stones. And then once you have those stones, you'll take those stones and place them on your board. And here's the tricky part. You have several potential columns. I think it was 7. I don't remember the numbers. Anyway, and you're going to score at the end of the game according to rows and columns. In each column, you can only have 1 color. The colors, there are, I believe, 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm pretty sure that one. 8 colors. There's 9 if you play with 5 players. But at a 4-player game, it's 8 colors. And you can only have 1 color per column. You're going to score your tallest 2 columns. Each of those colors occurs at a different frequency. So you want to collect stones or tokens in such a way that you complete at least 1 or 2 rows. That's, I think, the most I've completed is 2. And what's more, since you're scoring your tallest 2 columns, however, the further to the right a column is, the greater the score will be. if there are ties, if you have two columns that are the same height, you will take the score from the leftmost one. And so it's a really interesting puzzle of collecting the tokens in such a way that you can complete rows and try to get your tallest columns all the way over to the right. But you don't want to put the tokens with the lowest frequency all the way to the left, or you might not complete those rows. So just really tricky, but really fun puzzle. Plays very quickly. Very few rules, very easy to explain, definitely beginner friendly. Anyway, that is my honorable mention, River Valley Glassworks. Now on to the channel relevant games I played in January. Again, you can use timestamps to skip around. And I just want to remind you, if you are enjoying this video, you can let me know that by giving it a thumbs up. If you want to be notified when I publish new videos, then you can subscribe. Make sure to click on that notification bell. All right, let's go on to the channel relevant games that I played in January. These are going to be games with a biology or nature, science theme, anything related to that. Coming in at number 6 is a little card game called Death Valley. I played this 3 times in January. I have played it 3 times total. I have not yet had a chance to play it multiplayer. All of those plays were solo. This is a little push your luck card game. Plays 1 to 2 players in about 15 minutes. Has an average weight on Board Game Geek of 1.83, an average rating of 6.8, and my rating of it is a 7.2. This is a cute little 18 card game from Button Shy with beautiful art, and really I had so much fun making the playthrough video for this, both recording it and editing it, because I included a whole bunch of pictures from actual Death Valley. And in finding all those places on the internet, now I really want to go visit it, maybe in the winter when it's not quite so hot. But anyway, this is a little card game where on your turn you are taking a card to add to your play area in front of you. And so you'll add cards to your journey. You have 2 rows of cards. You have your journey on top and your scrapbook on the bottom. And on your turn, you are going to take a card either from the face up pile or from the face down pile. And the tricky part here is that there are, I think it was 4 different symbols in the game. Let's see, you have animals, sun, rain or water, and natural features. Yeah, so 4. And they occur at different frequencies in those 18 cards. But anytime you have at least 3 of those, well, have 3 of those between your journey and your scrapbook, then you have busted. And that means basically you're going to clear out your journey. One of those cards will go into a discard pile and the rest will be shuffled back into the deck. But the cards in your scrapbook are completely safe. And so there's a little bit of a balance between keeping cards in your journey and putting cards in your scrapbook, because there's a scoring twist, and that is that the stars on the cards only count for points if they are in your journey, not if they're in your scrapbook. So I actually really would like to play this at 2 players. We just haven't set aside time to do it yet. I forget about these 18 card games when I'm at home, because we take these, I put them in my purse and we take them when we go out sometimes. Anyway, it's a cute little game. Love Push Your Luck. I really enjoyed the solo mode and looking forward to playing it at 2 players. And that is number 6, Death Valley. At number 5 is a game I've talked about before, and this is another 18 card game from Button Shy, and that is Tussie Mussie. We played this 2 times in January. Actually, I think both plays were solo in January. We've played it 9 times total, and that's a combination of at 2 players and solo. This is an I Cut You Choose set collection game, so I love that mechanism. You don't see it in very many games, the I Cut You Choose, or it's often called I Split You Choose. It plays 1 to 4 players, that's with an asterisk. So the base game, if you just buy Tussie Mussie, the base game, that plays 2 to 4 players. And then there's an expansion that allows you to play solo. I think it's called the Flower Shop expansion. It plays in about 20 to 30 minutes. I think a solo game goes in about 15 minutes, really. Has an average Board Game Geek weight of 1.14, an average rating of 6.9, and my rating of it is a 7.5. We really like this game. This is a fun one to take when we're going to our son's events and there's going to be a little bit of downtime, because it just plays really quick. It doesn't take up very much space. Basically, on your turn, if you're playing the multiplayer game, you put out 2 cards. You put one, so you draw 2 cards, you look at them both, you decide to put one face down and one face up. And then your opponent will choose one of those cards to put into their bouquet or their keepsakes. And so if the face down cards go into their keepsakes and the face up cards go into their bouquet, and then the cards score based on other cards that are in their play area. If you're playing the solo game, it's pretty much the same thing, except that there are AI cards that tell you which cards are going face up, which cards are going face down, and you can't see the face down cards before you draw them and before you decide whether, to take them or put them into your AI opponent's play area. So anyway, it's really good. The scoring is done very well. That is Tussie Mussie at number 5. At number 4, we have another little card game, not 18 cards, a little bit more than that, but this is Piepmatz. I think if you do the translation, it's little birds. We played this one time in January. We have played it 17 times total, and I say that with an asterisk. I've played it 5 times at 2 players. 2 times I played a fan-made solo mode, but if I recall correctly, this was a while back that I did this, it was a little bit swingy in the points, and so I played another 12 times trying to tweak the rules to figure out solo rules that are consistently challenging without being overly swingy. Have not yet been successful working on that. Anyway, this is a hand management set collection open drafting game, plays 2 to 4 players in 20 to 40 minutes. It has an average Board Game Geek weight of 2.11, an average rating of 7, and my rating of it is an 8. This is a really fun little card game. So what you're doing is you're playing bird cards from your hand to a feeder. And your goal is to collect seeds and birds from that feeder. And at the end of the game, seeds and mated pairs of birds in your collection are going to be worth points. You'll only score the single birds if you have the most in that color. And so what happens is, in a 2-player game anyway, I haven't played it at a higher player count. With 3 players, I think it works slightly differently, but the idea will still be the same. So there are 2 sides to the bird feeder in a 2-player game, and there will be a bird at each side of the bird feeder to start with. And then you play birds. Each bird is a color and it has a number, right? It's just like suits on cards. And so you'll play a bird to the bird feeder. If the birds that are waiting to go up to the bird feeder, if the total on those cards is more than the number on the bird that's at the bird feeder, then you will take that bird that's at the bird feeder, and then the next bird moves up, and you'll check that again. The bird that you take, you're going to add to your play area, and again, you're collecting mated pairs, and you're trying to get majorities in colors, and then you're also collecting seeds. Whenever you take a bird from the bird feeder, you also get some seeds with that bird. And then if you can't take the bird from the bird feeder, you can play a card from your hand. But the tricky part here is you can only play a card that is I think it can be the same number or less. It can't be a higher number to your play area, and then you refill your hand. Anyway, really fun little set collection card game. I really like playing it at 2 players, and that is number 4, Piepmatz. Or Piepmatz, I'm probably not saying it right. At number 3 is a game that was new to us in January, and that is Life of the Amazonia. I have been wanting this one for a long time, and my partner got it for me for Christmas. I think I showed it off in my last vlog. Anyway, we finally got to the table. We played it 2 times. We've only played it 2 times total so far, but we really enjoyed it, and so I'm really looking forward to getting it back to the table again. So this is a bag building tile placement set collection game that plays 1 to 4 players in 60 to 150 minutes. It has an average Board Game Geek weight of 2.93, an average rating of 8.2, and my rating of it is a 9.4. Like I said, we really enjoyed this one. We like tile placement, we like set collection, we like deck or bag building. So in Life of the Amazonia, you are building up a jungle. So that's where the tile placement comes in. And there are 3 different habitats. There's forest habitat, grassland habitat, I think it's grassland, and water habitat. And you will be placing trees and animals and water plants into your jungle. And your goal is to have a very diverse jungle. That's how you're going to score the most points. And the way that it works is, on your turn, you are going to pull 5 tokens out of your bag, and you're going to use those tokens to do any of the 8 actions as many times as you can or want to. And the 8 actions are purchasing more resource tokens, and this is usually so that you can get the numbers on the tokens up higher because you can still only draw 5 on your turn no matter what. And so you want to draw the highest values possible. You could also choose to move up one of the tracks on the waterfall of life, which will allow you to place a terrain tile or a tree or an aquatic flower. And depending on how far you move up those tracks, you might score points at the end of the game as well. You could also place an animal into your jungle if you can pay its cost. You could purchase a nature card, expand your storage. So at the end of your turn, you are allowed to keep, at the start of the game, you're allowed to keep 1 token in reserve. So maybe you use 4 of them, you keep 1 in reserve. If you only use 3 and you have 2 left over, you can keep 1 in reserve for your next turn, but the other one has to be discarded. And so you can expand your storage. I think you can expand it up to 3 times. So you can expand it up to 2 times so that you can have up to 3 tokens in reserve for your next turn. Or you can purchase a bonus by paying the cost of it, and the cost depends on what type of bonus you're doing. Now, each type of those bonuses, this is where you can only do that thing once per turn for the bonuses. And so the fun part comes, for one thing, the animals are limited. So there's a little bit of a race amongst players to place certain animals. Each animal has different scoring conditions, depending on where you put it in your jungle and what things are nearby it, and also making your way up the waterfall track and sort of balancing all of those things. And so the key to the game appears to be having a very diverse jungle that works well together. So an ecologically sound jungle, I guess, would be the way to think about it. Now, we've only played it twice. I have seen some reviewers say that it overstays its welcome a little bit. We did not have that experience, but that might be because of our son. He really keys in on these games that are ended by player actions, right? So in this case, the game ends as soon as 5 of the animals are depleted, like they're on people's jungles. And the number of each animal depends on the number of players. So he has a tendency to rush that a little bit, but not in a bad way. He's pretty smart about it, but he does see it as a race. And so definitely the game did not overstay its welcome for us, because we viewed it as a race and tried to get as much done as we could before those 5 animals ran out. And it was just really fun, the puzzling the things together. It's a beautiful game. The only negative thing I will say about it is the component quality is what I would call sufficient. The tokens are probably the most annoying part. I don't usually upgrade my games. However, I did purchase the upgraded wooden tokens for this one. We didn't play with them the first time because I didn't know, I had heard about this issue, but I kind of wanted to feel it for myself. And it's true, the cardboard of the tokens is relatively thin, so that when you're reaching into the bag to pull them out, they have a tendency to kind of stick together, which is really annoying. And so I did get the upgraded wooden components for that one. Everything else is fine. The meeples for the animals are great. Those are wooden meeples, and they're screen printed, and they're beautiful. And I don't have the Kickstarter version. I just got the retail version. One thing that I didn't like is that when you put it away, you were supposed to break down the waterfall to put it away. And I immediately looked for a storage solution that was going to make that not happen. And luckily, somebody in our Discord had showed off an insert that they bought that allows you to put the game away. So it's going to speed up setup time. It allows you to put the game away without having to break down the waterfall, which was my main concern. Because I just foresaw it's cardboard, and if you break it down too many times and put it back up, it's eventually going to wear out, right? And this is a fun game. I anticipate we will play it tens of times. So we want it to last, and so therefore we didn't want to break down the waterfall. So anyway, this insert is amazing, and I will show pictures of it on the screen right now. So like I said, it was brought to my attention by one of our Discord members. You can find it online. I'm going to say this wrong for sure because it's Czechoslovakian. Inserti, I actually looked it up and now I can't remember. Inserti Herman? Anyway, it translates to Game Man Inserts. And the guy who owns the company, Martin, this is a small business, is super nice. So this is a 3D printed insert. It's very thoughtfully designed. Like I said, you don't have to break down the waterfall. It is sturdy, but while still being conservative with the use of resources, it doesn't overdo it on filament use, which is really nice. It makes the box lighter, and of course, it's always nice to use fewer resources when you can. It's going to make game setup a lot faster because you can just take out the token trays and put them on the board. You don't have to take them out of little plastic baggies or anything like that. And the animals are already in little, I guess, trays. Yeah, they're already on little trays, and you can just take those trays out and put them by the cards. It's perfect. He has a bunch of different inserts on his website. I encourage you to check it out. This one was 14 euros, which is totally reasonable. This is a very thoughtfully designed insert. Now that's without the token covers. So he does actually make token covers, so you don't have to buy those upgraded wooden tokens. You can just snap on these token covers onto each of the cardboard tokens, and it makes it like a deluxe, deluxeifies the game a little bit. So with the token covers, I think it was 23 euros. And I will put a link to a video of him showing off this insert and the website. He's a small business, he's a great guy, and designs amazing inserts, and you should just really go check it out. Next time we set up the game, I'll take some pictures of my own insert and show you that, but basically the pictures on his website are even better. So, but again, you don't have to break down the waterfall, so that's great. So that was number 3, Life of the Amazonia. Coming in at number 2 is a game I'm super excited about, and that is Finspan. This game was new to me in January. I played it 8 times in January. I've played it 9 times total so far, 2 times at 4 players, 1 time at 2 players, and 6 times solo. This is a tableau building hand management game. It plays 1 to 5 players in 45 to 60 minutes, has an average Board Game Geek weight of 2.17, an average rating of 7.7, but that's after 527 ratings, by the way. And wait, I'll talk more about that in a minute. My rating of it is a 9.5. So that average rating of 7.7, take that with a grain of salt, because a bunch of people right after this was announced put 1s, rated it a 1, without playing it, without even seeing it. It had only been announced, and they just put a bunch of hate on it, which I don't understand. Don't do that. Don't rate a game if you haven't even played it. Now, if you've played it and you didn't like it, that's totally legitimate, but just hate spamming, or even, rating it a 10 to balance out the 1s, because some people do that, like, that's wrong too. It's all wrong. Play the game and then rate it. Right? If you don't like it, rate it whatever you want. If you do like it, rate it whatever you want, but rate it for real. This is a really fun game. So what you're doing in this game, you are a marine scientist who is exploring the ocean, and there are 3 zones on your player board. Everybody has their own player board. This is really mostly multiplayer solitaire. So there's 3 zones on your player board. There is a sunlight zone, a twilight zone, and a midnight zone. The very bottom row is the abyss, and the very top row is the estuary. There are also 3 columns, each representing a different dive site. And so what you do is, on your turn, you are either going to play a fish card to your board, or you are going to dive, and that's how you're going to get additional resources. If you've played Wingspan, you'll be familiar with that, with both mechanisms, really. Some of the things I really like about this game, so I've recorded a playthrough and review, so if you want my detailed thoughts about it, please, I encourage you to go check that out. I had a lot of fun recording and editing that video. I put in a bunch of extra fish facts, so I encourage everybody to go watch it. Anyway, one of the things I really like about this game is that the cards are multi-use, and you are managing not only your hand of cards, but also your discard pile. So everybody has their own private discard pile. And the way it works is, on your turn, if you play a fish, that fish will have some cost associated with it. It might be as simple as playing it on top of another fish, but it also might require eggs and or young, and or for you to pay cards. And so you would pay cards from your hand by discarding them into your private discard pile, or your personal discard pile. It's not private, actually. And that is another interesting thing about this game. Your hand of cards and your discard pile are all public knowledge. Your cards go on the table face up. And so I really think that that is an interesting part of the game. I love the spatial aspect of how you're making decisions about where to play your fish. Now, they are a little bit limited. The fish can only be played into certain zones, although a few of them can be played into all 3 zones, the sunlight, the twilight, and the midnight zone. So a few of them, a very few of them, can be played only into particular columns. Those fish will have abilities on them that you will either get a bonus when you play it, it might have a game end bonus or scoring requirement, or it might have an if activated ability. And so if it has an if activated ability, that comes into play when you dive in that column where that fish is. So for each dive site, for each column, you get a bonus associated with each zone if you have at least 1 fish in that zone, plus you activate any of those if activated brown powers. And then if it's the first diver in that dive site, it also gets a bonus at the very bottom, but only the first diver to dive at that dive site. The game is played over 4 rounds that are called weeks. Everybody has 6 divers, so you get 6 turns in each week or each round. And so you get a total of 24 turns in the game. If you're familiar with Wingspan, it does not have that mechanism where you lose workers or cubes in the case of Wingspan. You don't lose divers each round here. You always have 6 every round. There are end round bonuses that you are working towards, so that's something you're keeping an eye on. And that's really, there's only 2 places where player interaction comes into play here, and it's indirect interaction. So you are all competing for the same bonuses. And I think on the other side, I think you can do it where you score first, second, and third place, but I don't know. I haven't, the achievements board is 2-sided, and I've only explored the beginner side so far. And then there's also, in the cards that you play, the fish cards that you play, some of those abilities will affect all players, either the if activated or the when played abilities. I don't know if there's any game end abilities that affect all players. I'll have to take a look. Anyway, it's so much fun. The fish are so much fun to look at and read about. It gives a little blurb about each fish on each card. And some of the fish, the ones that live in the deep, deep ocean in the midnight zone, some of those are really strange looking and they have fun names. In fact, when we played our 4-player game, that was one of the things that we had the most fun with, was just looking at the cards and saying, hey, look at this, hey, look at this. So that was a lot of fun. There's another part to this game that I haven't mentioned, and that is the eggs and the young on your board. So there is a spatial element to that. So you collect eggs and young. Well, you collect eggs by going diving in that middle dive site, and then some of your cards will also give you eggs. You can hatch those eggs into young, and then you can move those young around the board with certain abilities, and there's certain rules that govern that. And then once there are 3 young on a space, they form a school. And schools are worth points at the end of the game. So are young and eggs, but schools are worth 6 points. Eggs and young are only worth a point apiece. So it's a really nice scoring opportunity. However, there's a lot to consider when it comes to managing your eggs and your young and your schools, because sometimes you have to use eggs and young. Well, a lot of times you have to use eggs and young to pay for your fish to play them onto your ocean board. And so sometimes you don't want to form young into schools, but if 3 of them end up on the same space, they automatically form a school. You don't have a choice. It's just something that happens. They get close to each other, they form a school. So you're managing that. There's a spatial element in that you are trying to get young. If you want to, you're trying to get young, 3 of them onto a single space so that you can form a school that will get you more points at the end of the game. So there's a spatial element to that. So one really interesting thing is that a lot of reviewers, and I think even Stonemaier Games, has said that this was intended to be a lighter game than Wingspan. And I think I am alone in saying I don't think it's lighter. I don't think it's that much more complex, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to non-gamers, so perhaps for gamers it seems lighter. I don't know. I think it seems on par with Wingspan. But when it comes to non-gamers, I really watched my mom struggle with this one. So I talk about this at length in my review. So if you want my detailed thoughts, you can go there. But it's just that there are more things you're managing here. You're managing your eggs. You're managing your young. You're trying to get those into schools. You're managing not only your hand, but also your discard pile. You have a little more freedom on your board about where you place your fish, which I think for a seasoned gamer maybe makes it a little easier, but for somebody who's not a gamer, that's an overwhelming number of decisions at times, right? And so I asked my mom after she's played it twice now, and she said she definitely prefers Wingspan. She really enjoys Wingspan. She likes that one. It is the heaviest game that we play with her, so take that for what it is. But, you know, I think this might be, I wouldn't call this a first game, but it is a lot of fun. I mean, I have fun when I play it solo. I have fun when I play it multiplayer. The solo automa is so easy to run. You flip a card, you do the things. You either draw a card or you do a couple of conversions and then you're done. And then counting up the points at the end of each round and at the end of the game, super easy. Doesn't take much of your brain to do that. And so I like that. I can foresee playing this solo quite a bit, actually. So anyway, I think I've gone on too long for a vlog, and that is number 2, Finspan. Coming in at number 1 is Weather Machine. I love this game. I played it 2 times in January. I've played it 14 times total. 6 of those plays have been at 2 players and 8 of those plays have been solo. Both of the plays I did in January were actually, I think both of those were solo actually. I was trying to see if I could fit it on my table to record it for the channel. I talk about it a little more in last month's vlog, but basically my camera is not quality enough, right? It's not high quality enough. It's just a webcam that looks down at the table, and I don't have the ability to zoom in without it getting pixelated. So I am saving up for a better camera so that I can record a playthrough for Weather Machine. Anyway, this is a worker placement set collection game with action points. It plays 2 to 4 players. I say that with an asterisk. If you buy the upgrade pack, it also plays solo. I really enjoy this one solo. It plays in about 60 to 150 minutes. It has an average Board Game Geek weight of 4.6. This is a heavy game. It's actually not that complex as far as the number of things that you can do. You have to plan ahead in this game. It's very tight economy. Anyway, it has an average Board Game Geek rating of 7.8. My rating of it is a 9.6. I love this game. And actually, the more I play it, the more my rating goes up. I think when I rated it last month, it was a 9, but I was in the process of moving it up, and so it's solidly moved up to a 9.6. So this game revolves around experimenting with and stabilizing this chaotic weather machine that was designed by Professor Lative. The premise is that Professor Lative, the scientist, has created this weather machine to control the local weather, like adjusting rainfall for farms, maintaining wind and clear skies for clean energy sources like wind and solar, and tweaking the temperature for resorts and sporting events or making it snow at the ski resorts. Unfortunately, his tinkering has resulted in negative effects elsewhere in the world, as you might have expected. So you're working with Professor Lative, and your goal in the game is to figure out how to build a better machine that does not have negative consequences for weather elsewhere on the planet. And you do this by getting government grants so that you can gain a deeper understanding of Lative's current weather machine, publishing papers, and building and testing prototypes. Probably in the opposite order for those last 2, actually. So this is a very tight worker placement and resource management game. Every decision has an impact, and planning ahead is critical to success. But you also have to be able to change your plans when necessary. So it's a lot of strategy, but there's also a bit of tactical thinking as well. There is amazing artwork and graphic design by Ian O'Toole. The back of the board, which I am going to show right now, features the background artwork from the main playing board. I can't talk today. From the main board, but on the back it's without all the iconography, so it's absolutely beautiful. The cards, the weather cards, artwork is stunning. I mean, it's beautiful to look at. It's fantastic to play. Like I said, it is a heavy game. If you don't like heavy games, if you don't like long games, this is not the game for you. The solo AI is a bit complex. They do have nice helper aids for that. Still, the first few times you play, you're going to be looking a lot of stuff up, so it will take longer than, I can't remember how long a solo game takes me. I want to say I can get a solo game done in an hour, but the first few times you play, it'll be longer than that for sure. So like I said, the solo mode is not included in the base game box. You have to purchase the upgrade pack in order to get the solo components. I will say I got the solo pack because I backed it on Kickstarter, and I just want to say, what I have noticed in keeping an eye on Eagle Gryphon is the publisher, and what I've noticed by keeping an eye on their Kickstarters is that purchasing their games on Kickstarter is usually a good deal because the cost of the game plus the shipping is usually just a wee bit less than it will be if you wait. And their games are not carried at a lot of, at least their more deluxe games are not carried at a lot of online game stores, I've noticed. Because of their high price, I think. And so usually you would get these through the Eagle Gryphon website. And the Lacerda games don't go on sale very often. So the designer for this is Vital Lacerda. Anyway, I talked about this in a little more detail last month. So if you want some more detail about Weather Machine, I encourage you to check out the December vlog. There's always timestamps, so you can jump right to it. But that's all I'm going to say about it for this month. Anyway, that was number 1, Weather Machine. Finally, on to the crowdfunded games I backed, and there is just one, so I'm doing much better. But I had to back this one. This wasn't even a question. This is Darwin's Journey, the Oceania expansion. As you know, if you have watched any of my other vlogs, I think last month I played this last month. Anyway, Darwin's Journey is one of my top top 4 games. It might be my favorite game of all time. I rated a 10. I've played Darwin's Journey 25 times. I played it 2 times so far in February, so I actually will talk about this one next month. I also have recorded a playthrough and review of it that you can take a look at. Now again, when I get a better camera, I'm going to record another playthrough of that one because that video doesn't quite do it justice. It's not terrible, it's just that I would love to be able to focus isn't the word, zoom in more without it getting a little bit pixelated. So Darwin's Journey is a worker placement set collection game. It's a Euro game, plays 1 to 4 players in 60 to 120 minutes. Darwin's Journey has an average Board Game Geek weight of 3.91, an average rating of 8.1, and like I said, my rating of it's a 10. So in Oceania, in the Oceania expansion, it's basically adding another island map, but it also is adding some more mechanisms. I'm a little worried about that. I hope that they did this in a smart manner, but honestly, the designers for this game, Simone Luciani and Nestori Mangoni, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, I think they also designed Newton, and I think another game that I have. Anyway, I trust them as designers to have done a good job on the expansion. So in Darwin's Journey Oceania, Charles Darwin is venturing into the Pacific Islands where he is going to make additional discoveries. There are new specimens that you can collect here. There's going to be setbacks and challenges according to the Kickstarter page that test his resolve, from harsh environments to the unpredictability of uncharted territory. So there's a new island map. There's 16 unique specimens inspired by Oceania. There are new player boards with distinct bonuses, and it introduces a revamped main board with new features. These are a post office, a university, map lens locations, and a hazard track. So that sounds really interesting. So I'm really excited for this one. It is set to fulfill in October. I'm going to put a bunch of asterisks next to this because Thundergriff Games, they've always delivered on their Kickstarters. I can say that about them, but I think somebody documented this. They are always late. So if they're on time, that'll be a first. They project October. I will say Darwin's Journey fulfilled a little over a year late, but to be fair, it funded in January of 21. And if you remember back to January of 21, that was a pretty turbulent time in our economy. And there was a lower workforce in the factories where the board games are produced. So this didn't deliver until March of 23 for me. But that's fine. I mean, I haven't actually, honestly, I've not played the Fireland expansion yet because I've been totally happy with the base game. And so my next goal is to sometime this month play the Fireland expansion, and so that I will have played it by the time the Oceania expansion gets here. But I'm just so excited for this. Anyway, that is my only game that I crowdfunded last month, and that is Darwin's Journey, the Oceania expansion. All right, other stuff. I am recording this on February 12th, so now you're going to know how long it takes me to edit these. Today is Darwin Day. It is Charles Darwin's birthday. He was born in 1809, I think. So you do the math. I'll put a number up here. And it is also my 1-year anniversary for the channel. So I uploaded my first video on the origin of species 1 year ago today. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out. That's a really good game. I need to get that one back to the table. I really like that game, actually. So anyway, happy birthday to Darwin. Happy anniversary to me. Coming soon. This was supposed to be in January. Top 10 solo games. I swear I'm working on it. I've had a hard time focusing on some things that I needed to focus on. So I am going to get this out. So it's the next thing on my list of things to do is the top 10 solo games. There are a few games I kind of want to play before I make the list, but I'm not going to require that I do that. What I want to know is in the comments, what are your favorite nature, animal, science-themed games? Specifically solo, but really multiplayer is fine too. And I will say something about them for any of the comments that are posted before I make the next video. I'll say something about them. But even if you post them, even if you're watching this after that, please let me know your favorite channel-relevant games. I'm also planning to do an introduction or overview, I don't know really what to call it, for the Board Game Geek website. This was a request in a video comment. And because I'm always talking about Board Game Geek, I use this site every day to find out what games are coming, to record my plays. I keep track of my board game collection that way. Connected with people through Board Game Geek. It's a really lovely community. So what I was planning on doing is just, me sitting in front of my computer, walking through, clicking different places and talking about them. So if there's anything that I've mentioned that you want me to mention or show you how I navigate around it, please mention that in the comments and I will do that. So that is second on my list after the top 10 solo games. And then finally, a channel update. We're up to 540 subscribers, so we passed the 500 mark. Thank you to everybody who subscribed recently. If you were keeping track, it was previously 475 in the first week of January. So in just over a month, we've gotten an additional 65 subscribers. That's amazing. So I guess the next goal is 1,000, but I don't know what kind of a date to put on that. End of the year seems not quite ambitious enough, so I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But anyway, thank you. I'm thrilled. I'm so excited. Thank you for all the likes. It really is nice if you liked a video for you to thumb it up, because it lets me know that people are enjoying that. So that's really nice. Even if you watch this on Board Game Geek, a thumb there is really helpful. Comment there is really helpful. It's encouragement for me. Otherwise, I'm just sort of recording this out into the void, talking to my camera in an empty room. So anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. Your thumbs and comments makes it so that YouTube shares my video with more people. I am also planning, I forgot to mention this in the other stuff, I'm also planning to record 1 year retrospective, so a channel anniversary video. So watch out for that too. It won't be too long, but just looking back at some of the videos that I've made and maybe what are my favorites and that sort of thing. All right, so again, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know that by giving it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, it'd be great if you could subscribe. Ring the notification bell so you get notified when I publish a new video. I've been trying for once a week. I'm working my way back up to there. I was pretty consistent for a little while and then hit a rough spot, so getting back up to there. Anyway, thank you, thank you. Thank you to my newest Patreon supporter, Joe. Thank you. You'll see them scrolling by maybe about now. I'm not sure about the timing. But thank you very much for your support. And for my other Patreon supporters, I appreciate you more than you know. And I am using your support to save up for a better camera to be able to record these larger board games or even just have higher quality in general for the playthroughs. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's all I have for you in this one. I will see you in the next one. Bye.